the Tyler ISD Board of Trustees was previously called to order. The presence of a quorum has been established, the meeting has been duly called, and the notice of meeting has been posted in the time and manner required. The monthly meetings of the board are designed to conduct the business of governing the school system in public. However, this is not a meeting to interact with the public. We welcome you as guests to observe and listen, and we do have a scheduled time, actually 2 times within the agenda for the public to address the board. First item on our agenda is the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Our Father, I come to you this evening first to praise you for who you are. Lord, you are in control, and I ask that you make your will known to us. We recognize our role in the premier school district in East Texas is to teach students of all ethnicities, socioeconomic status, abilities, and challenges, to meet them where they are and meet their needs in a way that they are able to reach their highest potential. Lord, if we are able to handpick the students to attend our schools, we would choose each and every child that is enrolled in Tyler ISD, for each one is your creation, and you have entrusted them to us. Thank you for your leadership of this, for the leadership of this district that we see in a godly superintendent who has the abilities, the heart, and the determination required to successfully guide the district, leading it to be a shining example throughout the state. Thank you for Christian board members who sincerely love Tyler and Tyler ISD and have stepped into their role wholeheartedly out of a love for children and a sense of civic responsibility. We ask for your continued unity and purpose. Likewise, we thank you for the leadership team, school district personnel, and especially the teachers. We ask your continued guidance and protection. Now we ask for your wisdom and guidance as we make decisions for the over 18,000 students under our care. Help us to discern your will in the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
We have no action coming out of executive session, which moves us to the approval of the minutes under item number 7. Are there any changes to the minutes? If not, I'll accept a motion for A, B, and C of the minutes.
Mr. President, I move that we approve minutes for June 18th, July 9th, and July 19th.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say nay. Motion carries. Item number 8, Lone Star Governance and Continuance Improvement. Dr. Crawford, you have some good news for us.
Yes, I do. As Dr. Hanson and Dr. Curitin, Mr. Sanchez make their way up to the table here, we're in a lot better shape than we were 4 years ago. And there's been a lot of discussion in the paper about what those ratings are. And 4 years ago, we had a brand new superintendent coming in here and a lot of eager principals and teachers to overcome some of the ratings we had acquired. 10 of those at our comprehensive campuses of improvement required. And it's official tonight, or well, official before tonight, that all of our campuses have met standard. The district has met standard as well. I was pretty excited about that. Have a lot of work to do still, but at the same time, I think being able to celebrate those milestones of meeting standard has really propelled our staff. Today's the first day of school. Morale is a whole lot different than it was a couple, 3, 4 years ago, and making a lot of growth with some kids that have a lot of challenges, and I think that's the way we're going to keep going. On top of that, we're going to let these 3 folks talk about the accountability system. Yeah, the district was provided an A through F rating this year, and for the first time, and we were a C plus. This went A through F, but a C. But I think our final grade was a 78. So we're very close to B, enough to make us hungry to get that next year, and then just keep moving our way towards an A. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we get there, and I'll have one disclaimer on there. They're using calculus to determine these A through F grades, and like I tweeted out, I think the only time that we use calculus to figure out a grade was actually in calculus class. So for the public knowing what A through F is, for an educator knowing what A through F is, there's a lot of work to be done explaining how to get there and what that means. So we're going to turn it over to these folks. They're going to do the best that they can to show how the sausage is made, and again, maybe go over some of the highlights of our performance here this last year.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford, and thank you, Board, for giving us the opportunity to come up here and go through the system and walk through the ratings for our campuses and district this year. So what I want to do is just give you an overall picture of the accountability system and then walk through each of the domains. So this new system has what they're calling 3 domains. These replace the 4 indexes of the old system. You'll see 4 boxes up there, but domain 2 is kind of split into 2 different things. So I'll get to each one of those separately, but the first domain 1, that's student achievement. And student achievement is, for our elementary and our middle schools, composed just of STAR scores. So the way this is calculated, this student achievement score is calculated is by averaging the percent of students that got approaches, percent that got meets, and the percent that got masters. So if you recall from previous presentations, those are the different levels of proficiency on the STAR test. And so the way that this domain 1 is calculated for elementary and middle schools is by averaging the percent of students that obtain each of those levels. For a high school, it's a bit more complicated. For a high school, they're also including something called CCMR, which is College Career Military Readiness, for our graduates from the year prior. So these would be for our 2016, 2017 high school graduates. And essentially what they're doing is looking at these 11 different criteria and asking whether one of our graduating seniors met one of these 11 criteria. And they're calculating that as a percentage. And then the last thing they're going to do is look at graduation rates. So it could be 4, 5, or 6-year longitudinal graduation rates that they're going to include. And effectively what they're doing for high schools and for the district alike is they're weighting STAR, so STAR scores, which is calculated as an average of the approaches, meets, and masters. They weight that 40%. They weight the college career military readiness 40%, and then graduation rates are 20%. So STAR and CCMR are weighted about the same for high schools and districts. One more back. One more. Oh, backwards. So I just put this up here real quick. I don't have to read through this, but this is just to give you some idea of one of the criteria that a senior had to meet. They had to meet at least one in the prior 4 years to be considered college career military readiness. So this was any test that's associated with the Texas Success Initiative, so ACT, SAT, AccuPlacer, AP test or IB test, and you can kind of go through and see that there's different criteria that a student can meet to be considered college career or military ready. And that's all in that domain 1 piece. The newest addition to the system is the focus on growth, and that's what domain 2 is. It's academic growth. And without overcomplicating things, effectively what they're doing for elementary, middle, and high schools is they are looking at the number of students that met growth on the STAR test divided by the number of students that took that test. So for example, for an elementary school, you could assess growth from the previous year on STAR by looking at 4th and 5th graders in math and reading. Because a student starts in 3rd grade, you don't have a 3rd grade progress measure. Does that make sense? So essentially, it's looking at the number of students that showed growth, and without making it overly complicated, what the expectation is they're going to show growth and move up 1 proficiency level. So from like approaches to meets, or meets to masters, or If they do not meet the grade level standard, move up to approaches. In simplification. So that's focused just on math and ELAR for growth. For 2B, 2B is essentially kind of jumping back. It's the same as domain 1, so it's the same as what we talked about with STAR performance, CCMR, and it doesn't have graduation rates. STAR and CCMR for high schools and districts, and then for our elementary and middle schools, it's just STAR. But what they're taking into account in this particular domain is the percent of students that are economically disadvantaged for a given campus or a given district. So it's essentially accounting for that using a regression line and looking at performance given where a campus is in terms of the percent of economically disadvantaged students. So this domain is just comparing your performance to other campuses that have similar levels of similar socioeconomic level. And just to point out, you can see domain 2A was really focused on growth. Domain 2B is focused on just the performance, but it accounts for those socioeconomic status. The first three domains, that performance, the relative performance in 2B, and then the growth, overall, the highest of those three is used. So if your performance is highest, that's what's going to be taken into account in the overall rating. If performance is low, but you're showing a lot of growth, then that's what's going to be taken into account to go into the overall rating. So all three of these first three domains are not included in your composite rating, in the overall rating. It's the highest of the three. Domain 3 is where it starts to get a little bit more complicated. So domain 3 is included in every composite rating. It's 30% of the overall weight of a rating. That table up top is kind of small, but you can see that they break down every indicator, and I'll show you those 4 indicators in a second. They break them down into 14 different student groups. So for each of those student groups, they're going to assess one of those 4 components, which is really about 6 components. For elementary and middle schools, they're going to look at academic achievement in math and reading, and what they're considering academic achievement is the percent of students that got either meets or masters. So we're taking out the approaches and just looking at our higher level proficiency. For academic growth, that's the percent of students meeting growth in math or reading, and that's again broken down by student group. The English language proficiency is looking at students at advanced level on the state TELPAS test. And then the student achievement domain score, that's essentially taking that domain 1, taking that performance and kind of running it back into this domain and looking at how the performance of each student group changes. And so it's looped back in here even if domain 1 does not count in your overall rating. And I put that table, you can just see the weights there. Growth is weighted heavily, and so is the academic achievement, which is the percent of students that got meets or masters on this. It does change a little bit if you get to high schools and districts because they include college, career, military readiness, and graduation rates, but wanted to keep it kind of simple up there. And this is what I showed you. It's just they take the highest of those first 3, really the first 2 domains, domain 1, domain 2A or 2B. They take that rating, the highest of those 3, and then weight it 70%. They take your domain 3 score, weight it 30%. They add those together, and that's how you get the overall score. In terms of distinctions, once you get past the overall rating, there's 7 potential distinctions you could get, or a campus or a a campus could get. A district can only get 1, and that's the post-secondary readiness distinction. Elementary campuses could get all of those except for the social studies. Middle or high schools could get all 7 distinctions. So ELAR, math, science, social studies, academic growth, which was that 2A domain, closing the gaps, which is that 3rd domain, and then post-secondary readiness. And just to give you a quick overview of how those work, each campus and district has a comparison group, and it's based on the demographics of that campus or the district. And so within that comparison group, what is looked at for the distinction is several indicators. And so I put the post-secondary readiness distinction up there because that's a brand new one. And you can see they look at things like graduation rate, graduation plan rate, TSI criteria. You can see all the way across the board. They look at your numbers relative to those other campuses, and they place you in a quartile. And based on whether you're in elementary, middle, or a high school, you have to hit either 50 or 33% of those indicators. So it starts to get a little bit complicated. And when I say hit that, I mean you have to be in the top quartile to get a distinction. Go ahead.
I know that was as clear as mud.
Dr. Hanson, before you begin on the district improvement plans, in the past, we used to receive what was called a campus report card. Is there a reason we did not receive those, or is it possible to receive?
The TEA hasn't sent them to us yet.
They have not sent them. Thank you.
On the slide that's up right now, so the numbers under step one, the percentages, those percentages are the Tyler ISD percentages, or what are those?
That's just a sample.
A sample?
So it's just
Okay.
an example of how it would be calculated.
Gotcha.
Dr. Cureton, we talk about hitting a moving target and how the rules change. What are we talking about with that? What rules change and what are we trying to hit?
Well, most of this system was finalized probably in July, and then late July, we got a little bit of a change with the TELPAS being included. We didn't expect that to be included this year. For the most part, it should be effectively finalized. It's supposed to be static for 5 years, the targets are, which we would think means the system would be static for 5 years. At this point, we're just focused on making sure that students continue to improve. And if we do that, I think with where we are now, the results will take care of themselves. So it is essentially, or it was essentially a moving target. It's supposed to remain static now, so we'll see how it goes.
We're really focusing on growing every student because we are moving into a legislative year. So we don't know that it'll stay stagnant. And so the principals and teachers are really working on just growing every student, year's worth of growth. 18 months, we try to do 18 months if the student has a lot of skill gaps, and we know that if we do that, then kids will, the scores will take care of themselves.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there any reason to believe that our district goals that we've set won't parlay into achievement within the state's standards? And so I'm guessing our district goals parlay pretty good into, hitting all these.
Right, the MAP score, the MAP reading on grade level is really what we look at when we look at our district goals. And when we look at our certifications and our college and career readiness. So certainly we define college and career readiness with that goal number 3 the same way that the state does. Even though the feds have a different criteria for college and career readiness than the state does, which is so, but we do that. And with the certifications, that again, that just is. But as far as the reading level for 3rd grade, we really look at those MAP scores for the most part, and that does stay stagnant because that's a nationally normed assessment.
So that reading proficiency, those improvements, we're still a couple years away from really seeing the full effects of that.
Right, the MAP scores for us this year in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd were really good. So we were very happy with the growth that we saw from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And we feel like what the teachers are doing in the classroom, what's happening on the campuses is we are really seeing the benefits of that. So we know that the kids going into 3rd grade are going to be so much more prepared for this STAR test than they were this time last year. So we feel confident we're going to make leaps and bounds.
And because Domain 3 is trailing data, we pretty much know how we're doing there.
Domain, the college and career readiness is what we call lag or trailing data,
Right.
and the graduation rate for the high schools is lag data. But the reading score, the STAR scores are current scores.
Okay.
But, yes, sir. Yes, sir, to answer your question, y'all had a presentation here at a few board meetings ago about the certifications that we were able to acquire at CTE or CTC. Mr. Brown gave you that presentation. So that should count towards this coming year for our high schools. Our graduation rates outpace the state. So those are some positives that are in Domain 3 that we're confident are going to help us score next year as well.
Correct.
Any other questions on the accountability system?
Hey, go back to that one slide to where, keep going, right there. When you go home and you start looking at this stuff a whole lot more, that's the one to where we've got to be pretty good. Because over there on the far right, on the master's grade level, they've got to keep mastering to get any type of score for you. So in other words, once a kid hits masters, you got to keep them there, and that's a difficult thing to do. We've got to have very rigorous teaching and a very prescriptive way of going about that. You can no longer just depend on that student just to be a passer. They've got to maintain their mastery level for them to score for you in the system. So that's something that's a little bit different from the last 25 plus years of high stakes accountability, to where we were just worrying about pass or fail. If they're going to score for us in this system, staying at masters is a priority for kids that are already achieving that.
Okay, so we'll start looking at the district and some of the campuses specifically now. And so overall, this is where we landed in, again, Domain 1, 78%. Our academic growth was in 2A was 76, relative performance was 80. So again, they're comparing us across the entire state, and that's where we fell. And then closing the performance gap, 74. And so our composite rating was 78. We're 2 points away from that B. We're going to get there next year.
That's right.
Can you go just back, make sure I understand it? So the highest of the first three is 70% of this rating, right? So
Yes, sir.
we got an 80 is the number that we used for that, 70%, and then 30% at the 74.
Correct.
Okay.
So in Domain 1, if you look at Domain 1, we had 21 out of the 27 campuses that met Domain 1. So that's just your pure performance. In Domain 2A, we had 25 of the 26. So what that tells us is that we are growing kids. We're moving our kids forward. And then in 2B, we had 25 of 26 meet that one. And then closing the performance gap, we had 26 of 27. So you may be wondering why we only had 26 campuses and 26 campuses in 2A and 2B, and that was RISE. So RISE did not count in 2A and 2B. They did not have an opportunity to have a performance in 2A and 2B. So RISE was only scored in pure performance this year. They didn't have college and career readiness. They didn't have graduation rates because they didn't have students last year that were assigned to them. And so the only thing that they had to, in this accountability system, was pure performance. The kids either made it or they didn't. Okay. Okay. So the next chart, as you can see, that's just a repeat of basically what we just talked about. Who made it in domains 1, 2A, 2B, domain 3, and then the composite score. So red essentially means they did not achieve that particular domain.
Is that graph right? That chart right?
Is the Robert E. Lee and John Tyler switched?
They're
Yeah, Robert E.
flipped.
Lee and John Tyler switched. The names are switched there.
So the chart is not correct.
The chart is
No,
incorrect.
flip.
Yeah,
Flip John Tyler and Lee.
yeah, that should be John Tyler up top. Robert E. Lee should be the second one. Thank you for pointing that out.
We have someone doing CPR out there on
I know.
those.
You okay back there, Dr. Crawford? Yeah. We'll get that corrected. So here is just a chart of the last 4 years in the accountability system. Even though the accountability systems have changed, this is where we've been. So this is our historic view.
You know, you're saying it very softly, but this is tremendous improvement.
It's tremendous
These
improvement.
campuses have worked strategically hard for us to reach this stage. And I think it's important that we recognize, since our principals are here this evening and their staffs, that we compliment them for this hard work and for the
Absolutely.
vision that the central administration had in guiding them, especially in the rewriting of the curriculum. And I know you're going to continue to do that. But this is great news for Tyler ISD.
Yeah, it is.
Great news,
Great
Principal.
news.
We're a little shy. I mean, I think it is,
Oh, we need to talk it up. We
because
beat
we're
on
not
them
there
up.
yet, but thank you for recognizing that.
This is great news.
Principals, if you're here tonight, would you please stand up so that we can give you a round of
Right.
applause? You know, Reverend Mason, I tweeted this out last week when the results came out, that some of my peers, some of my closest friends, some of the same ones that complain about school funding in this A through F system, when they received this B or an A, were the first ones to go out there and start putting the medallion up in their administration building. We're just going to keep our head down and keep plugging, and realize that we've still got a long way to go, but we have made some improvement. We've done it through principal leadership and teachers that have really bought into the system, and we're at a place now to where we can really make an impact on Tyler schools. It's been a while since Tyler hadn't had a comprehensive school on a low performing list, so very proud of our principals. And again, we'll stay humble. We're not going to sit here and stick our chest out, but we had a good year last year.
I remember when we hired you, and a conversation that Mr. Burkfeller and I had with you, that you will find within 6 months what those areas are that we needed improvements made in, and you accepted that challenge. And so while we're complimenting our campuses and their leadership, we need to also compliment you, our superintendent, and your administration for the way you led this. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I keep thinking back to that interview and those interviews, and we had, golly, half of the dang district on IR, 13 of 27 campuses, and I know that had to be a pretty daunting task from a soup that was coming from West to Tyler ISD.
West Common.
Yeah, and man, looking back, given the fact that we've had changing accountability ratings and the way they figure it all out, job well done, and y'all keep it up out there. I'm really, really pleased, and I know all the parents of our kids are pleased that you guys are using data to figure out what we need to do to get better and where we need to get better, what campuses, and so this is definitely exciting news.
Thank you, Mr. Washman. I'll say this. Growing up in East Texas, it took me 30 years to get back. But the way you do this is through people. And we've got great people in our school system who have Christ in their heart, and they show up every day doing godly things. And when you have that type of teacher to work with, you can accomplish great things. And so it's been a lot of work. I won't say that it hadn't been, but at the same time, we've just got great people out there. And so y'all don't need to throw it here. It needs to be on our campuses. There's no doubt about it, because that's where the accountability lies. That's where the risk lies, and it takes a special person to be a principal at a mid-urban, urban school, and that's what we have. And can't say enough about them, and I'm excited about the year we're going to have this year. So.
All right.
I need to thank everyone here, including Dr. Crawford and all the principals, everybody that's worked on this. For many years, we just made excuses when this came out. And I just watched it, and it'd be like, oh, here we go again. We talk about all the reasons why we can't do it. And It's not the end, but it is so nice to not have to make excuses. And I appreciate y'all. I really do, because it goes straight to the classroom. And we sit up here, but it's you guys who do all the hard work. And so I just want to thank you.
I want to say just a word or two. Dr. Crawford, I remember you were our last candidate to interview with us. And I looked at you, and you didn't look nervous at all. Now, see, if I had been coming in, the last candidate,
It was hot.
it was hot.
Mr. Bergfield turned the air conditioner off.
Yeah, it was hot in there.
Made sure it was a good interview.
Yeah.
And I bet you said to yourself, what have I gotten myself into? Because we had all of these problems, these trouble problems. Looked like all of our schools were not doing what they were supposed to do. And you came in, and you knew more about Tyler and the school system than a lot of us did. And I just want to say thank you so much. You've done a wonderful job. Also to our principals and administrators, you have really done an excellent job in pulling Tyler up to where it is today. So thank you, and make sure you tell your students that we sure appreciate what they've done. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Washington. That's good.
I might just add on, if you look at the chart, you will see that we've gone through a shift in some of our principalship over the last couple of years. And what's really exciting is that this past year, with the exception of one, which he's going to bring a lot to the table as well, all of our new principals were either assistant principals for us, or they were in a different leadership capacity within our district. And so I can appreciate the fact that in our district, we are grooming, coaching up, and continuing to promote people within the district that continue the work that we started 3 or 4 years ago through the vision of Dr. Crawford. So, you know, the work continues, and the continuity and the sustainability with the new principals that have been hired, even the assistant principals that have been hired to replace the assistant principals that moved up to the principalship, are also individuals that have been in Tyler ISD and understand the work and understand the urgency that we have to ensure that all kids are successful and there's equity and access across our district. And so we appreciate those new principals that we've hired that continue to share the vision that all of us have had and continue to have within our district.
And man, if we're going to stay on this, I might as well get my money's worth right. You know, Ramey was an hour two school, 14 and 15, and got off, and then we had a transition there at 1 year, and then we put in someone who'd only been an instructional specialist as a principal. And then their first year, Ramey gets a B. And it's not just because of the principal leadership there. I know there were some folks in the community that were concerned about that because we hadn't traditionally done that. It always had to be an assistant principal or a certain person that had needed to be the principal at Ramey. But that staff really has had a change of heart in the last 5 years. And what they've done, what Douglas has done. Douglas, Ms. Roach, where are you at? Raise your hand. Are you in here tonight? There she is in the back. Remember, Douglas was reconstituted 4 years ago. And they were like at a 77 or 78 this year. I know man, throwing out those letter grades is dangerous, but that's the language we're going to have to learn how to talk. They're stable, and they've had a change in heart. They didn't like doing the reconstitution, and yet we're there. So Griffin, same way. They've stabilized. Appreciate the work Mr. Chandler's done. He's handing the baton to Mr. Ladd now. They've got a great staff over there. So it's all about building teams, but at the same time, we could go through here and recognize every one of them. Somebody tomorrow is going to say, why didn't you recognize the work at my campus like we did at Convocation? It always happens. We just don't have that time to go school by school and the great things that are happening there. But certainly those three that I just mentioned tonight. You know, Ramey, let's talk about Ramey. Ramey has the most risk loads in our community. Those risk loads are things like male unemployment, less than high school educated, and it's got it pretty much in that cluster about what their attendance zone looks like. It's got the highest risk of any of our campuses in the school system, and they were rated a B. They're not an A. We want to strive for an A, but incredible first year started to be with the demographics and the challenges that are supposed to be there. And we don't make that as an excuse. We make that as an advantage for us to be able to achieve great things for our kids.
That's why it's so important for us to help our students to understand that your present economic status or your situation that you may live in does not have to determine your future. If we have teachers like these teachers in Tyler ISD and the parents who are sending their students to us day in and day out, then they can achieve, and this is a prime example, Dr. Crawford. And you know how much I believe in achievement. All this other can go, but achievement is important. To see where our schools have come from and to see where they are, to see how our students are achieving, that's what's important.
Yes, ma'am. And, we're in East Texas, and we're in Tyler, Texas, and we've got poverty throughout our entire school system. And so as we're championing some of the ones that have the most risks, Jack Elementary to score an A this year and to do the things that they've done within their demographics has been exciting as well. So was at Jack today watching enrollment today, and it's a very diverse campus as well. So just don't want to leave anyone out. I think they acquired 5 distinctions this last year. Is that correct, Dr. Davis? 5? And then I don't want to leave out the best middle school in the state, and that is Moore Middle School. I'm embarrassed Mr. Lane for all 7 distinctions acquired this year. So there's great stories all over our school system, across the ethnicities, across the demographics, across the economics, and just very proud to be able to serve as superintendent. So,
Of course, we couldn't let this night go on without, hopefully Vanessa's here, Ms. Holmes, and the great work that Dogan and her staff did is phenomenal. She's ill tonight.
yeah, she's out tonight, but we made a big deal at Convocation, which is, by the way, the largest faculty meeting of the year. It's my meeting. It's not a board meeting. So
No dress code either, is it?
No, apparently not. Totally 80s. But Ms. Holmes and Dogan got their recognition at Convocation, and very honored to be able to honor her along with the staff persons there that overcame a pretty big deal. The announcement of closing their school. When did we do that? In February? Or earlier than that, probably November.
November.
Yeah. That was looming over them, and that was what a great story for them to rise above and to meet standard last year.
Well, I'd like to add my voice. I don't like to just hear myself talk or anything, but I need to say that when I first came on the board, our first order of business was to hire a new superintendent. And when we talked with Dr. Crawford, he had some big ideas, and I thought, okay, well, we'll see. And he has done everything that he has said he would do. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate that. And as far as the schools go, I've seen a sense of teamwork and camaraderie within the schools that I've never seen before. And that is due to the work of the principals, and I appreciate that too. So, kudos.
Okay, so let's talk about distinctions. So with the elementary distinctions, I know that Dr. Curitan talked a little bit about that, but basically an elementary campus has to rank in the top quartile for 50% of that distinctions indicators. And so we kind of go through, you can see where those are. In science, the top 25% comparative of closing the science, math, ELAR, and closing the gap, post-secondary readiness, and then the top 25% comparative academic growth. So with are you going to talk about these specifically? Okay. And then in secondary, a middle school campus has to rank the top quartile for 50% of the distinction indicators, and a high school campus has to rank in the top quartile for 33%. And those are the possible distinctions.
Let me add to this. This is where we ask our principals, and we make sure our principals help provide accurate and up-to-date data, because a lot of this has to do with their free and reduced lunch applications. that our kids have submitted, because we want to be able to be reflective and be compared to campuses in a district that is similar to ours. And so a lot of that has to do with economic disadvantaged kids, kids at risk, neighborhoods that they live in, the risk factors. So this is hopefully a plug for us as people are listening and watching and understanding that it's really important that parents submit those free and reduced lunch applications, because we want to be reflective of what our campuses look like. And so that really helps with our campuses to ensure that we're getting the distinctions that we rightfully deserve and the kids have worked really hard to get, along with the teachers and the principals, and the school improvement officers who sit to my right here are also a part of making sure we gather all that information. And so I want to make sure that our principals hear it, our community hears it, our board hears it, that we got to be willing to go out there and make that extra effort for people to turn in the free and reduced lunch applications, because it helps us be reflective and reflect who we really are.
So again, just this historical snapshot of what our distinctions look like in previous years compared to this year. So this year, the elementary campuses had 17 distinctions. There were 8 schools that earned those. And secondary doubled their distinctions. We had 16 distinctions, 4 schools earned those. So good job with the campuses.
While we have the principals here, let's go ahead and recognize who they are. Robert E. Lee, 5 out of 7 distinctions. This is where you stand up. Early College, 3 out of 7 distinctions. 50% of our high schools receive distinctions. Congratulations, high school principals. We have Hubbard Middle School, got 1 out of 7. And the best middle school in the state of Texas, yeah, I said it, Dr. Crawford, 7 out of 7 distinctions. Congratulations.
Hold on, is he here tonight? There he is. Mr. Lane, I'm gonna brag on you real quick. I heard that you did I guess it was a Meet the Teacher, and you honored Dogan, but you essentially, and I don't know what you said, but you essentially, because I got this from someone else, but you essentially said, enough, we're not talking about that anymore, you're now all more Mustangs. And I appreciate you doing that, because that is the way to build that. And while you're honoring the past and their success at Dogan, I appreciate you welcoming every student that you've received this year, because there were some comments that you and I had to deal with from some community members in regard to some things we didn't like to hear being said about our students, wherever they're coming from in the district. And I appreciate you embracing them. We're looking for great results out of the Moore Mustangs. Thank you.
We have TJ Austin, that was formerly IR, grabbed a distinction. So congratulations to them. Birdwell continues the great path of academic success. They had 3 distinctions. Owens had 2. Caldwell and Griffin both had 1 distinction. Ramey continued the success, two distinctions. Georgiana over at Woods got 2 distinctions. And bringing in with 5 distinctions, Jack Elementary. That's pretty impressive. So again, 50% of our elementaries also receive distinctions, and that's some awesome work there, because what it tells us is that regardless of the neighborhood, like Reverend continues to talk about, kids are being successful. And so we're proud to be able to say that it doesn't matter what neighborhood you live in, okay, the quality of education across our district continues to get better, and there's no longer pockets of excellence, but now we're beginning to see a system of excellence where all kids have equity and access to quality education. So really appreciate our principals and our school improvement officers for the work that they do every single day, making sure that that happens.
It's okay, it's the same information, so we're good. Do you have questions for us?
Keep up the great work.
Good job.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, so that's A. Is that also B as well?
C.
And C? No, C is improvement plans.
Yeah, A and B was your presentation.
That was A and B? Okay.
C is your consideration, possible approval for district improvement plan and campus improvement plans and planning process.
Okay.
As you consider that, the book that you have there obviously is not every campus improvement plan, but more or less an executive summary for every campus. If you have specific questions about a campus, you may contact myself or one of the assistant superintendents, and we'll get you in touch with the appropriate principal or school improvement officer. I can say those plans are a whole lot different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. As far as the slap your wrist stuff coming out of the agency, it looks like we're in good shape. Some of our peers that we compete with are now going to go through some of the same things that we went through to get to this point. So it's nice to be flipped a little bit and above the regression line for once. Doesn't mean we still don't have some things we need to do, because we do, and we still may have some interactions to do with school improvement from the state level, but it's not the same as it was. So if you've got questions with about that district improvement plan or campus improvement plans, please contact me.
So are we taking action on that item tonight?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we need a motion.
If we approve the district's improvement plans and campus improvement plans.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. We now move to item 9, public hearing on the 2018-2019 budget.
We've had multiple budget meetings with the board here at workshops, and Ms. Bjork is on hand to answer any questions in regard to the budget. But as part of the budgeting process, as far as statute goes, this is the portion where the public can comment on the actual budget.
So we won't approve the actual budget until we get down into action items.
Correct.
But at this time, we are open for public comment. You don't have to have signed up for this public comment, correct? This is open, but the comment is limited only to items related to the budget and the tax rate. Do we have any members of the public that want to address the board? Okay, I see none. We'll move on then. We need to do anything special there under that portion? Are we good with what we're supposed to? Okay. Action items then. We have bond redemption. Is there a presentation?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, Dusty Traylor with RBC is here tonight to give you a brief explanation of the action item A for some redemption of your bonds.
Good evening. It's always good to be at Tyler ISD. Again, for the record, Dusty Traylor with Managing Director with RBC Capital Markets. The item on the agenda is just simply as stated, just an opportunity for the district to redeem a certain portion of your outstanding bond portfolio. This is something that Ms. Bjork and I have a conversation on nearly every year. As she gets the certified taxable assessed valuation, she calls me up and says, hey, we need to take a look at this and see what we can pay off early this year. She does a fantastic job of that in helping to manage the district's finances and specifically the district's bond portfolio. You guys do a fantastic job have always done a great job of kind of taking an active approach to managing your bond portfolio. You don't just simply set it and walk away from it. You've done a number of things to help the citizens of Tyler achieve tax savings here by managing that bond portfolio. And I'll turn in the presentation that's before you. We've got a few slides. Slide number 1 just kind of lays out the entire bond portfolio. A total of about $431 million currently outstanding on the bonds that have a final maturity in 2047. But what I really would like to focus on this evening are the 2 particular bonds that we're looking at redeeming early this year. And this is similar. You know, we talk a lot about refinancing bonds, and this is not refinancing bonds. You're not going to just take out a new lower interest rate loan. You're actually going to pay off this portion of bonds early. So a total of $3 million, $2.22 million from the Series 2005s, and $780,000 from the 2009 bonds. Those bonds kind of carry a combined interest rate right now of 4.71%. And by paying them off early, anticipated payoff date would be February 15th, 2019. The district would achieve additional interest cost reduction or savings of $1.249 million over the remaining life of those bonds. So you can see there it results in savings, a little bit of savings each and every year through the final maturity of those bonds. Then on this next slide, I think it's good to point out the steps that the district has taken going back to 2012 to actively manage this portfolio. You have either done bond refinancings or redemptions totaling $123.6 million, and inclusive of this particular redemption, that savings works out to about $16.95 million over the course of those either redemptions or refinancing. So this active management, again, is helping to save taxpayers millions of dollars over the life of the bonds. Any questions?
Any questions, board?
Anytime we can reap the savings, that's good news for the city of Tyler and for our school district.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think it's great, Tasha and Dusty, that, you know, we can partner with you, and we're like-minded in the fact that, you know, we want to get this stuff paid off early and save our taxpayer money, and it's good to have good partners who have the same mindset. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Any questions for Dusty? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you guys. Good to see everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
I won't read the whole thing, but I will make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation on this item.
Second.
As stated in the lengthy.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say nay. Motion carries unanimously,
Continuing good news.
saving taxpayers big money. Item B, consider adoption of the 2018-2019 budgets.
So this is where we've had the workshops, and Tasha Bjork's going to come up to the table and sit there so that she can go over some of the highlights. Y'all can ask her some of the questions, some of the work that y'all have already done this summer, a lot of the work that the finance and operations office has done this summer as well.
Good evening. I'll just go over a few points, and then you can approve it, hopefully. For this year's budget, our increase was around $4.2 million, and that's about 2.9%. In a summary of what that is, our tax revenue is actually up $6.7 million. But because of our lag, our property tax lag, the state looks back a year ago, and they subtract funding from us based on our value increases a year ago. And that decrease in state funding for this year was $3.7 million. So that's why school districts don't have an effective tax rate, because we don't get every dollar of our property tax increases. So in effect, we've gained $3 million this year from property taxes. The other $1.2 million increase.
Tasha, can we just
Okay.
pause there just for clarity? So almost half of the increase in local property taxes did not stay in Tyler ISD. It
Right.
went back to Austin.
Yeah, and that's last year, our property tax increase was around 4.8 million. And so that shows you how much they take back, because it was 4.8, but they took 3.7 back this year.
Right.
So next year, they'll take even more back, because our increase is 6.7 million this year. So it's a one-year lag.
Okay.
The other 1.2 million, we have invested well in some things, and our interest income is going up around $600,000 or $700,000. The rates are doing better, that type of thing, and then our teacher retirement system on behalf payment is increasing, so there's an equal increase in revenue and expense, but that causes the budget to go up. It's just a book entry. We don't get the money or pay it out. The state does it on our behalf. Now, what we did with our increase, if you flip the page to our expenditure budget, we basically, 2.7 million of it was for raises and additional staffing. And the raises were $1,500 per teacher and 3% of the midpoint on each pay scale for all other employees. And then we have one-time money that we're going to spend on a technology update on our virtual desktop environment system. So that's where we're spending the money. One thing I want to say about the raises is we are not increasing our health insurance premiums this next year, which we'll get into that a little bit later too. But that has enabled everyone to see their entire raise for this next year, so we're really pleased with that.
We're looking at people ought to be clapping out here. You're getting the raises.
Well, let me speak to that real quick. As compared to the state's plan, we've got about 3,000 participants on our insurance, on our self-funded insurance. And you know, if you look, depending on what plan you're on as compared to the state's plan, if you work in a different school system that's on the state's plan, I think we're the only one in East Texas that actually are self-funded, then you're looking anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000, maybe more in your back pocket every year going home, as opposed to working in maybe one of the satellite school systems of Tyler ISD. So certainly it is an accessible perk. And I think a lot of the folks that participate on that plan do appreciate the board kind of trying to hold some of these things tight so that they can realize some of those compensation boosts whenever they do occur.
Just a couple of other things I would like to point out. Our 3 cents of our tax rate, of our $1.04, which is the most we can levy in the general fund, goes to preventive maintenance. And we feel really proud of that because we don't have to issue bonds to do repairs on our buildings. We keep up with it through this 3 cents. And if you look at the bottom line of this page, it says transfer to preventive maintenance account is around $2.5 million. So that's 3 pennies on the tax rate that we put into that fund. And not many school districts do that. They assess the $1.04 and take it all for operations. Or they go above up to $1.17, but
Yeah.
we've not done that. We're
No.
sticking to the $1.
Tim, Tasha, and I really do promote that. I think that was a very smart thing that this board entered into a covenant with the community of Tyler ISD in the early 2000s, I believe, is when that occurred, before the construction programs went along, because a lot of folks were saying, you know, we don't want you passing bond elections to replace air conditioners or to do roofs or do parking lots. We want y'all to take on that and be smart enough with the money that we already provide you. So Tasha's right. We start out really at $1.01. That 3 cents goes back to the public's facilities so that we can take care of things like parking lots and the other things that I listed.
And then the other thing, our function 11, in other words, what we put in the classroom, is around 60%. If you look at 11, 12, and 13, those all relate to classroom and classroom instruction. And it's a little over 60%. And I just wanted to throw that out there too, that our budget is focused on instruction and classroom. Any questions for me? The next two are just our food service fund budget and then the debt service fund.
Champion our food service a little bit.
Right.
A lot of school systems have to dip into their M&O side of your normal budget, your $1.01 here, excuse me. Victor Oliveris does a phenomenal job. Our food service staff does a phenomenal job in taking advantage of every little nook and cranny there is in federal code and state code in regard to food service for our school system. Would like our food to taste a little bit better. Obviously, it's school foods. That's been the common complaint for the last 75 years since we started feeding kids. But in saying that, just want to make sure that we don't get to say that very much. One time a year to say that our food service does a good job of managing their fiscal enterprise as well.
And the debt service portion of the tax rate is 36.5 cents. And it will fund around $34 million in debt for next year. Any questions?
Any questions from the board on the budget? I just applaud you, in addition to some of the conservative things you've talked about, the 3 cents. There's a whole list of things that we don't include in bonds, like school buses and technology, the things we fund out of the general fund. Just another example of trying to be good stewards of taxpayer money. When was the last time we adjusted the M&O side of the tax rate?
It was around 9 years ago.
9 years ago. So we've held the tax rate flat on the M&O side for 9 years.
There's 10 school systems in Smith County. If Lindale is successful in November in passing their bond election, I think we'll be number 8 as far as tax rate goes. So the third lowest in the county. Right now, we're the 4th lowest by 0.005 cents, I believe.
Any questions on the budget? I know we've seen this budget several times since going back to June. Is that when we see the first one? Yeah, okay. Okay, then I'll consider a motion on item B, the adoption of the 2018-19 budget.
I so move.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item C, the adoption of the tax rate.
That's just what our total tax rate
Right.
is, the $1.40.5 cents,
40.5 cents, 104 in M&O, unchanged, and
36.5.
36.5 for interest and sinking.
Mr.
Entertain a
President-
motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the tax rate of $1.0405.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Washburn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we're also going to close out last year's budget.
Right. So this is just a summary of the final budgets on general fund, food service, and debt service.
I move we approve the 2017 and 2018 final amended budget.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thanks for taking care of us, Tasha.
Okay, we're now moving to the public participation portion of our meeting. The board wishes to hear your thoughts and concerns, and according to our policy, all the speakers must have submitted a participation form 10 minutes prior, which we have 2 of them. You speakers should have received a card with our guidelines. We also ask those in the audience to refrain from responding to the speaker's comments, including cheering and applauding. This will enable us to focus our attention entirely on the speaker. Do we have we only have 2 tonight. Do we have a timer that will run? We'll get a timer up here. The first public speaker is Mr. Bob Brewer. You have 5 minutes, Mr. Brewer. You don't have to use all 5 minutes, but you have 5 minutes.
Well, thanks again. This is kind of what I wanted to say some of the last 2 weeks, and it's not specifically about the name change. The consideration of a name change is a tiny symptom of something much more persistent, pervasive, and pernicious. The renaming of a school or the removal of a monument is an attack on society by the erasure of our history. Orwell said the most effective way to destroy a people is to deny and obliterate their understanding of history. Once again, this is a tiny attack in an overall battle that we're suffering from all directions. Anyway, how can we learn from our history if we forcibly obliterate it? How can we learn from books if we burn them? How can we learn if we refuse to teach the books we've used throughout our history? How many times has anarchical overthrow started with the burning of books, the removal of statues, and the erasure of a society's history? An argument can be made that the original foundation of America's educational system, the first guarantee in our Bill of Rights, the very first, has been obliterated from government schools. Might the obliteration of this guarantee be why Christian parents sacrifice tens of thousands of dollars to avoid educating their children without this fundamental historical foundation? Might the increased frequency of underreported assaults on teachers and students be a manifestation of the obliteration of this part of our country's history and cornerstone? 15 years ago, Democrat Colorado Governor Lamb listed 7 ways to destroy a country. Today, how many of these are being enabled by our government schools?
Bilingualism. History shows that no bilingual, bicultural country lives at peace with
Mr.
itself.
Brewer, we actually have a policy that says we're not going to play
We'll
recorded.
change that? Okay. Bilingualism. History shows no bicultural country lives at peace with itself. There's not one that doesn't exist with an incredible amount of tension and conflict, if not civil war. Multiculturalism. The first plan would say all cultures are created equal and then make it impossible to talk about culture. The second part would be to try very hard to make people continue their cultural identity. Third thing is make the fastest growing demographic group the least educated, then add a second underclass to the first underclass that is unassimilated, undereducated, antagonistic, and then have 50% of them drop out of school or not measure up to historical standards. Number 4, get big foundations to fund these efforts with lots of money. Invest in ethnic identity and victimology, and get the victims to think that their lack of success is the fault of a successful majority. Number 5, promote dual citizenship and promise people a divided loyalty. Number 6, place all of these subjects offline. Make it taboo to talk about or criticize them. Come up with a word like racist or racism and accuse anybody of racism that brings up these ideas. Number 7, make it impossible to enforce immigration laws and then develop a mantra that states that because immigration has been good in the past, it will continue to be good in the future. Now I ask, how many of Governor Lamb's plans are being practiced in our schools today? It's just pervasive. So anyway, closing. History cannot be changed by attempting to erase it, but racism and the destruction of America that we are experiencing in so many fronts can be solved by returning to the foundational text of American education and abiding by the principles of our Declaration and the letter of our supreme law. And in that regard, we have Constitution Week coming up, September 17th. I've got a bunch of these signs, yard signs, 6-foot banners, 3 feet wide. If we don't know our history, and it's obvious with everything we see in
About
our society.
5 seconds, I got you on the timer.
The what?
The original timer, you got about 5 seconds.
Oh, what
Yeah,
is
it's
this?
late. It's a minute late, sorry.
Okay. So anyway, we got a chance to get educated Constitution Week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second public speaker is Stephanie Odom. Is that right? Oh, good. That's okay. It's better than mine. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Odom. I live in Tyler. I have a school-age stepson in TISD. National Voter Registration Day is on September 25th. This upcoming date is a great opportunity to highlight the high school voter registration law. This law requires Texas public high school principals to undergo training as deputy voter registrars and provide all students who are 18 or will turn 18 that year the opportunity to register to vote. There is a how-to guide published by the Texas Civil Rights Project outlining the process, and I have some copies if anyone here would like one. To quote from this guide, registering high schoolers is crucial in engaging students in the political process and increasing voter turnout among young people across the state. The right to vote is a cornerstone of our democracy, and we owe it to our students to help them become active participants in their communities through voting as early in life as possible. Registering students to vote on their high school campuses is a giant step in the right direction. To take advantage of this untapped opportunity, high school principals and community leaders must be informed on the ins and outs of high school voter registration. This guide exists to help accomplish that. Their data, obtained from the Texas Secretary of State, shows that between 2016 and 2018, Lee High School was in compliance with the law, but John Tyler was not. There was no data for the early college high school, but since they have their first class of seniors this year, I assume the law will apply to them this fall. I encourage this board, parents, and taxpayers to support each high school's compliance with the high school voter registration law and ensure these kids are getting the opportunity to register. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 12, business, legal, finance, consent agenda. We'll pull item D. Any other items to be pulled? If not, I'd accept a motion for item 12, all items except D.
I'll move that we approve item 12, A, B, C, E, and F.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Item D, Dr. Crawford, do you want to tee this up?
Let me jump in real quick. Mr. President, I'm employed by Christus Trinity Mother Francis, and as such, I think that in full transparency, I should abstain from the discussion and vote on this tonight.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Crawford?
The first thing I want to do is thank ETMC for our previous 9 years. They've provided great service to us and fine people over there. They've transitioned to Ardent owning them, and then they're now UT East Texas. Still have great people over there. So when we go to this, we want to make sure that we convey our thanks to them for the services they've provided for us. We also know that they're still a partner in our city with us, and want to make sure that they have treated us well in the past, and look forward to our continued membership as a citizenry here in Tyler, Texas. What we do have before you today, board, is an adjustment, a switch from the hospital formerly ETMC, now UT East Texas, to Christus Trinity Mother Francis Hospitals and Clinics. We have representatives from them here tonight. Chris Glenny's here, along with some other of his colleagues. He might can introduce them here in a minute. But the recommendation is going to be that we actually do switch. We actually spent a lot of time studying healthcare. After the 1-year pause that we received last year, very benevolent of ETMC to do that. As we went through that, we rebid it with FBS. a different consultant, a different broker this time around. We previously used George Michael and Associates, but to give us a fresh perspective, a different look on what is actually out there and available to our employees, we were able to come down to this decision after a tremendous study of what's out there for us. Ms. Bjork, along with myself, Jill Fondren, Jenna Mahaffey, along with others, were the ones that received these recommendations from our broker and our consultant. And perhaps Ms. Bjork can chime in a little bit more in regard to some of the other ins and outs as far as the data points go. So introducing this action item, it's our recommendation that we actually go with Christus Trinity Mother Francis for the next 3 years. Tasha could probably take you through some of the contract language and guarantees that we do have. But that's our recommendation.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You and I spoke briefly before I had to go into another committee meeting. This does not erase the memorandums of understanding that we have for our students with UT Health Northeast. Is that correct?
That's correct. Not from our end. We fully expect to be able to be served in regard to some of our curriculum experiences for our students that we have. We also have some asthma clinics, I believe, that are still being produced with them.
All right.
Whether or not those things are up for debate or not, I'm sure Mother Francis can actually step in if there is I guess, a lack of service there. But we expect our especially our internship experiences, our experiences at CTC to still exist. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Tasha, could you comment on costs differentials?
Basically, the reason we decided to switch was because the costs were going to increase around $750,000 for us. And we received a guarantee from Christus that they would hold the level of our expense at this current year.
So $750,000 lower than the other proposal?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
And
No.
full transparency here, that we do have
Right.
in year 2 and year 3. You might want to talk about that.
Right.
Tasha.
In year 2, the base that we're at, which is around 8.1 million, will go up 5%. That'll be the guarantee. And then in year 3, it'll be another 5%, the guarantee. So what happens is they'll bill us for all our
Claims.
services. If we exceed that, they will write us a check back.
At the end of the year, is that when that?
It's around like 6 to 9 months later.
You said if or we will.
If we exceed that, but they feel like they'll be able to keep us under that limit.
And do you know off the top of your head how much our expenses increased the last couple of years? Is 5%?
We've actually been pretty flat. I mean, like this year we're down a little bit, but I think a couple of years ago it went up a little bit and then it went down and flat, and we're down a little bit this year, so
Okay.
it varies. It depends on what happens for that year.
The cost savings sound really good, but just a question about the end user and the plans that are offered and the availability of good care. Do we feel like it's going to be equal or better to what we had, and as far as the
Yeah.
options go for our
Mhm.
teachers?
And
our
that
employees?
may be something good that they could talk about.
Yeah, we're going to let them come up here and
Right.
talk about that.
I mean, we feel like it, or we wouldn't have decided to go with them. But they probably have more information on that, too.
Yeah, going through the process, we were able to view both
Right.
hospitals way more than we did the first year or two that I was here and looking at this. And we're very impressed at both locations, but very pleased with Christus and their some of the things that they do offer our employees. And certainly, you're talking about 9 years with a certain organization, and of course, there's some expected bumps as far as transition goes, but we've been spoiled. We've been very fortunate to have had a pretty good bottom line with a partner here in town that has treated us well. I guess because of some changes in the healthcare world, as far as finances go, I don't think ETMC or East Texas felt they could keep us at the same level we were at last year.
Right.
And Mother Francis came in and gave us this guarantee for this next year and a 5% cap each year more. They can't exceed, they won't exceed that. That's the ceiling, I guess. So that's our recommendation. And if you'd like Mr. Glennie to come up to the podium to ask him some questions, I'm sure he would love to do that.
So we're looking at dollar savings, many dollars.
Yes, ma'am. This first year, again, we spoke about this in our budget presentation, as far as being able to protect the raises that this board is affording our staff. This makes sense this first year. I think it's going to make sense in year 2 and year 3. And it's a 3-year commitment. We're going through this exercise again in year 3, and then it'll be up to Mother Francis to uphold their end of the bargain and see where we go after that. Christus, excuse me. Old school East Texas. Chris.
Yeah, thank you very much for letting me come up. I'm Chris Glennie. I'm the President and Chief Executive Officer of Christus Trinity Mother Francis and Christus Health in Northeast Texas. So we're obviously very excited. We put a lot of effort and work into to working with Tyler Independent School District. Dr. Crawford and Tasha and Jill and the team have been fantastic to work with. In terms of the plan, the idea here is the guarantee is a cap. Yeah, we feel like just from studying the claims history that we're going to be able to keep the spend for TISD below the cap, but the cap is what escalates year 2 and year 3. We don't believe we'll hit there just based on what we've analyzed and worked with Tasha and the team on, but it's there as a safety net for the schools so they can really plan and budget for the future. In terms of access, somebody asked a question about access and service offering. Christus Trinity Mother Francis Health System has a strong commitment to quality of care, to access for our patients, and to service. In terms of access, we have a very large medical group that we work with. We have 7 hospitals in the community. We have a number of urgent care centers with extended hours, extended primary care hours. We have a freestanding emergency room in South Tyler, and we have over 700 medical physicians and advanced practice providers that are a part of our system. And so it's a very comprehensive integrated delivery system, and we believe that we can take care of TISD's healthcare needs. And in terms of our organization, we have over 6,500 employees, or associates as we call it, and 85% of those associates stay within Christus Trinity Mother Francis's network for care that they receive without challenge. And so, we believe, working with Dr. Smith and the Trinity Clinic team, that we know we have tremendous primary care access. We're already working with the team to begin the transition. So we've got a plan. It's going to be a bit of a challenge because of the timing, but we're going to get it done. We're excited about it and really, really excited to partner with TISD.
What do you see as the greatest challenge
In
that our
terms of the
employees will feel?
I think the challenge, the biggest challenge will be changing physicians. I think that is a challenge. The network is a narrower network for sure. It's the Trinity Mother Francis Health System network. And so patients, families, associates, employees that have enjoyed care by physicians will be asked to switch because the network is different. And that will be the biggest challenge. That would be for my family.
In terms of deductible cycles, do we run on the school year? And so there's
It's October 1st through September 30th.
Okay. So we're making the transition at that point in time?
Yes.
Okay.
Just curious, if I'm an employee of TISD and I have a certain specialist that I'm used to receiving care from, under no circumstance will I be able to keep that specialist, is that correct?
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on the network. We have a number of independent physicians in the community
Thing that needs to be said.
if they're in the network, then absolutely. And I think that we have, again, a number of independent physicians that were likely in both networks. I think the previous network was very broad, and so there will be some specialists in the network. There will be some that aren't.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion for item D.
I move we approve item D.
Mr. Washman, a second.
Second.
Your Reverend Mason, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And one abstention. Item number 13, curriculum instruction consent agenda. We are pulling item J. Dr. Crawford, is there any discussion or comments around any of the other items?
I do not have one.
Okay. And if there are not any questions by the board, I'll accept a motion for item 13, A through I.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Reverend Mason. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item J, Dr. Crawford.
State law, the Texas Education Code provides us to certify off-campus PE in certain circumstances. On page 103 of your packet, we actually need to add one. So if you take a motion, if you are going to consider this and vote on it, we would like to add our partner here in town, Tyler Junior College, to this list. We have Gracie Barra, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Pierce Equestrian. That is actually on your agenda item on page 103, and we'd like to add Tyler Junior College. Coach Priest is here tonight. PE is really not in his shop anymore, but he is the guy that kind of helped with this. Coach Priest, tell us about the programs at TJC that our kids access for these off-campus PE opportunities.
That one's just the Academy of Dance.
Okay.
So we had that on there, but that was left off it. So it's Academy of Dance.
TJC Academy.
You walked all the way up here just to say that, huh?
I did.
And while he's there at the table, I do think that we've increased swimming at the middle school level. We've got tennis as well that our kids can participate in, and obviously with middle school soccer, this is we're not having to do quite as much of this as maybe what school districts have to do in the past. But this is an opportunity for us to have this policy enacted. Dreaming big, we could also look at maybe future gymnasts going over to Texas East Gymnastics or wherever they might choose to do that could take advantage of this policy as well.
Any questions, discussion on this item? Not, I'll accept a motion for item J.
I move we approve the Gracie Barra, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Pierce Equestrian, as well as Tyler Junior College as approved facilities / agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Bergfeld. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lots of seconds. Great. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Coach Priest.
Good job.
Item 14. Superintendent staff reports, construction update.
So Tim Loper, Brady Bedingfield, and Cherie Jones will take the podium or the table now and provide you construction updates at both John Tyler High School and Lee. Mr. Loper.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford and Board of Trustees. I'm just going to turn it right over to Mr. Bedingfield. We're going to start with John Tyler first, and we're going to let you know all the work we've been doing despite the work you hadn't been seeing at John Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Loper, for that introduction. Thank you, Board, for this opportunity to provide you with an update on the John Tyler High School project. It's actually been a while since we've provided an update for you guys, so you'll see a few changes through the photos, but as most of you are driving by on the loop, some of this may look familiar to you, so we'll jump right into it. This aerial image is, it shows what's been accomplished in the Phase 1 and Phase 2 early site packages that you guys have allowed us to get a head start with. You'll notice that majority of the front parking lot, the drives, and portions of the building and the courtyard had been demolished and turned to dirt. And you can also see where I've outlined in red, that's the footprint of our new building. To the right there will be the administration part. As you're moving left or south will be classrooms and science labs. And then to the farthest left or farthest south will be our new Performing Arts Center, as well as the Fine Arts academic portion. You can see the work going on right there in our southeast courtyard. And then on the north side of campus, you'll see a small red box there. That's our, what we call Section 7, which is a new auxiliary gym, and work has commenced there as well. So, this is a photo that shows the construction of our concrete retaining wall. Last we spoke, I indicated that we were starting at the retaining wall and how important this retaining wall was. There's a lot of concrete and rebar. You can see the men standing on top of that wall for scale, but our two-story building will sit on top of this retaining wall, so very important. So you can see concrete placement going on there. The next photo shows that same retaining wall that forms our courtyard after the forms have been stripped off. And this is the retaining wall with our very important drainage system and waterproofing. This photo is taken as if you're standing on backstage of our Performing Arts Center looking north towards the competition gym. And what you're seeing there is through our geotechnical studies, we were allowed to keep the dirt on site. It took some modifications, which you can see we basically plowed up 12 to 18 inches deep and recompacted in, but that was a huge cost savings for us to be able to utilize the dirt that's on site versus having to import good dirt. So
Is that dirt good dirt?
that is good dirt.
Okay, you said it's, okay.
Sorry. This is the finished product of the dirt mitigation. You can see it's nice and slicked off. This is, again, looking north from the Performing Arts Center to the competition gym. And this is looking towards the courtyard and the existing campus.
Is it true that dirt had to set for a certain period of time? You have to let it settle and all of that before you can begin any construction on that site?
That is a good idea, especially when it gets watered in by Mother Nature helps. But as part of our design criteria is to reach a certain amount of compaction, and that's through mechanized means. So it really achieves most of its compaction by machines, but yes, it is beneficial to let it sit. It's called resting. This is the earthwork that occurred at our gym foundation. You can see the difference in dirt here. This is imported dirt. This is a photo inside of our southeast courtyard. This courtyard in its final setting will be a student gathering location. It'll be enclosed by our new two-story building, but this will provide an outdoor learning space. It'll have concrete and crushed granite and 2 rows of oak trees growing in there with some picnic tables and benches and whatnot for students to gather.
Wish you had a before and after picture of that site right there.
Me too.
That flood we had in the spring, all that rain.
Right.
It looks 100 times better.
Yes, it does. And will in a few months. After school let out in May, one of our major tasks that we were assigned with was to vacate what we call Section C and D which are academic portions of the existing building. So we packed up all teacher belongings, all furniture, and removed those items from C and D, and abatement crews came in and abated the asbestos flooring. And then our custodial group polished the flooring, and we've moved the furniture back in now, ready for school to start. So this is just a final photo of what that abatement process looks like. But
Yeah, let me add here, when I got here in 2014, Dixie and Rice Elementaries did not look that nice. So I'm pretty proud of our facilities and our construction partners to make sure that we have nice hallways, at least after it's already gone through demolition. So about as good as you can get until we get to the final product.
there's a lot of people that pay really big money to have a floor that looks like that. And my final slide here, but not my final information. In June, the end of June, our drawings were complete to the 100% status. They were issued by our construction manager out for subcontractor bid. They received those proposals back and were able to develop a guaranteed maximum price. That guaranteed maximum price was presented to the board on August 2nd. To which we were provided an approval to proceed with phase 3 of our building and the balance of the site package. So in those 18 days since August 2nd, we have been very busy, although the folks that drive by on 323 may not see a lot of action going on site. I guarantee it's coming. In those 18 days, I'll just go through a few things. I've actually made a list here, but these items are very important and must-haves, but predominantly are administrative items. So first thing we did, obviously, is we finalized our contract with our construction manager, which then released them to issue subcontracts to the actually hundreds of subcontractors and providers, suppliers that we're paying to build this job. We've finalized insurance coverages and received our performance and payment bond on our construction manager. We've obtained our building permit and applied for our stormwater pollution prevention plan, as well as installed some of our pollution prevention items on site. The construction manager is currently working on submittals, and for those of you outside of the construction world, submittals are paperwork-based.
What word are you saying?
Submittals.
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 Okay.
So we have product data submittals, which basically the construction manager will submit to the architects and engineers to confirm what we believe that we're getting as far as materials go. And those are provided an approval, and then they're released for purchase. And then we have shop drawings. And shop drawings provide additional details as far as what's going to be built. So you have to do, for example, shop drawings on rebar. Every piece of rebar that's on the job actually has to be drawn, detailed, and approved before it's released for fabrication. So at this point, we're in the shop drawing phase. We are actively working on the rebar shop drawings that go in the slab and in the concrete piers. We're expecting approval on those within the next week, which will in turn release the concrete subcontractor to mobilize to the job, and they'll be drilling piers the week of Labor Day. As far as the piers go, they line the two-story building, and they're on the Section 7 gym as well. So the first week in September, there'll be a lot of action going on at John Tyler. But just a couple of other items. Soon as the contractor mobilizes for concrete, he'll be followed by MEP subs, which are mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And the site is going to be swarming with folks installing things under the slab that you'll never know is even there unless you're on site active every day. So, and just to recap, we're on schedule and pressing forward. So I'll take any questions.
Any questions on John Tyler?
Yes. Statements and questions. I've been bombarded recently with concerns being expressed by perhaps, I guess, there are citizens in the John Tyler area and ex-students who seem to feel like the construction at John Tyler is being held up so that construction at Lee can move forward. I've just heard you give a list of things that are taking place and will be taking place. Is it possible for that list to be posted on our website, what can be done so that the citizens in the community are aware of what is being done and what will be taking place? I just think it's important that we let people know. And I know you can't answer all concerns, and some of them are unfounded. We all know that. And I know for a fact, having gone through all these school bonds, that there is so much other work that has to take place before you can do some of the work that you see above ground. And John Tyler being more than one level, I understand there's a lot that had to go before we even start building on top. So what would your simple response be to anyone who seriously believes that we have held up John Tyler so that Lee could progress?
Yeah, it's false. I can promise you that we've been working tirelessly since I've been here for over a year, working to produce where we're at today for John Tyler. Statement of stalling John Tyler so Lee can progress is false.
I have tried to say to the citizens that we promised them how much money would be spent at John Tyler. Also, that when you walk onto the campus of John Tyler, that John Tyler will look like a brand new school all the way around. So can we still assure the citizens of that statement that that is a correct statement?
That is correct.
Can you comment just on how much time was lost by having to rebid John Tyler?
That was, I don't have that exact timeline here with me, but
6 weeks?
Ballpark would probably be 6 weeks.
6 weeks,
Sure.
okay. Any other questions or comments on John Tyler before we move on to Lee?
Marty might want to say something.
Yeah, you asked the question, how can you convey to the public that the district's going to uphold its end of the bond? And I can, 4 schools, Orr, Douglas,
Right.
Jack,
Right.
and Woods. This district and these taxpayers, Mr. Loper, since he's been the facilities director here, has ensured equity across this school system.
We've done that.
And it would take a fool to not do that on this, Reverend Mason. And I know you're not accusing us of that.
No, I'm not. I'm just responding.
But you would like
to
a statement, and
accusations.
Mr. Bedingfield, I appreciate your professionalism. So I'm going to make that statement. We have awesome facilities. I visited every elementary school today in every part of our city. We have great middle schools. We're going to have 2 great high schools. We would be poor stewards of the taxpayers' dollars
Correct.
to try to stall one
Right.
so the other one could progress, or stall one so the other one could catch up. We would be over budget and out of time.
That's right.
So please let the man, Mr. Loper, run his construction program. I beg you, I implore you. I know the high schools have had this tradition and this history of this mistrust out there about one versus the other. But goodness gracious, we have built great facilities here across the school system, and I get it. I get it. The other thing I'm going to say on this is, do we still have the same builder that we hired, WRL? Like, they didn't quit on us, did they?
No, sir.
Are you sure they didn't quit on us?
I'm positive.
Okay, because that's kind of out there that they just said, you know what, we're quitting. No, David Dutton and crew at WRL located in Flint, Texas, they would be crazy to do something like that because they're in Tyler ISD. So you and I
I
talked,
received their
and I'm hoping I'm
performance
answering
and payment plan today,
questions
so.
and giving enough emotion and passion that we're going to have great schools when we get done with this. 3 years to build high schools, y'all. 450,000 square feet. We haven't done that here in a long time.
Right. You know,
We've
Marty,
built-
there are some of us here who have been through maybe 3 bond campaigns. And we have stood by everything we promised the community that we would do. And I don't understand, you know, it's just a lot of negativity now. But we have always done what we promised that we would do. And if everyone would drive by, they will see.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm glad you answered those questions. I thank you for answering the questions. I hope that everyone is watching the television so they could hear the answers to the questions, and we can go on and move forward in building these two great high schools.
Hey, Reverend Mason, you know what we didn't have back in 2004 or even in really much in 2013 that we have today? You know what the difference is?
Facebook.
Facebook, oh.
Yes, ma'am.
You're right about that.
So you can't get your information and your news from Facebook. If you've got a question, please call our facilities department. They'd love to take you through that, okay?
And they need to live with a contractor too. He could tell them a whole lots about building and when it's gonna be finished. And don't call him if he's building your house until he's ready to tell you to move in.
Well, hey, thanks, Brady. I appreciate
you,
that.
sir.
Yeah,
Good family discussion tonight.
And I think Reverend Mason hit on something that, you know, this board can control a little bit, and that's whether we're negative or positive about, you know, what we're doing and what our district's doing, and are we defending them in a positive way that we're going to have a great school that's on time and it's going to be on budget just like all the rest of them are. And we don't get into politics when we're in our construction, you know, and it's going to be an awesome school. So that's enough conspiracy theories.
Amen.
Amen, brother.
So we want to move to the other school.
Mrs. Jones is ready to report on Waterview.
Reverend Hager, members of the board, and Dr. Crawford, just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to give you a little bit of update on what we're doing at the Robert E. Lee campus. Since the last time that we spoke, we're in the middle of working on phase 2, the civil site work, which included our utilities, demolition, and also dirt work. We're pretty much getting to a place where that was finished up once we got to March, April timeframe, but we ran into a few problems once we got to working on our building pad for the 3-story academic building. Just kind of showing you this picture. We did, like I said, quite a bit of dirt work in the months of March and April. So what we did was we called in our structural engineers, the architect, contractor representative at TISD, and we had a special meeting just to make sure that we discussed any kind of problems that we were having with the 3-story academic building, soil conditions. And what we looked at was an alternative solution of using a round aggregate geopier system. This is a really great system to use and that you're able to control any kind of differential settlement problems. So with that being said, we were able to go ahead and finish up making sure that we had a good foundation system in place, and that was really important to us. Just go to the next slide. This is just showing you a little bit of information about the round aggregate geopier system. This, like I said, is only for the 3-story academic building areas A, B, C, D, and E. As far as our cost, it was very effective. Production, we had very little, any kind of delays. We were able to install some 750 geopiers for that area. So everything turned out well, and we were really happy with the end result. This is a picture of our plumbing and electrical underground. So just wanted to show you, just as an example of just how much conduit that's going in the area for our main distribution area. It's a lot of upfront work that goes into place before we even do a foundation system. Just wanted to make sure that the public understood that. This is a current site overview. It basically gives you an idea of what has been worked on to date. Everything that you see that's in blue is everything that's been poured for our parking lots and driveways. Everything that you see in the colored locations would be our actual foundations that we're going to be pouring. Just to kind of discuss it a little bit more, as we go through the upcoming slides, you can reference back to this sheet just to give you a little bit of indication of where we're at and what we're talking about. If I were to talk about just a little bit about the schedule and the direction in which we're going, if you look at the area pink, that's our area A, and area B, this is all the three-story academic building that we're working on right now. And just to kind of go over that with you, all of that's been poured. The area that's hatched, it's area C, that's our main entrance into the three-story academic building. And we're almost to a point where we'll be completely finished out pouring that area after this week. If you go around that area that's green, that's the kitchen location, and that was poured, as well as the area right next to it is our art location, and we'll be finishing that out this week as well. So we also go in a clockwise direction as far as the way that we're building everything, and we will finish out with the cafeteria. That'll be our last slab pour. This is just showing you by date the way in which we poured our foundations. We have area A. This is our foundation poured there with, shows you also the yardage as well. This is area B. And then it shows you the location of the kitchen, as well as looking at the south side of area C. And then our area K, which is the north side slab pour that we did. And as I said earlier, we'll make sure that we get this all completely taken care of by the end of this week as far as all of our slab pours for those areas that are highlighted. Some of the other major areas that we wanted to just point out to you was our bus parking lot. This was a big area because we also will have all our construction workers. Some of them will be parking in this area, as well as it's where our construction trailer is located. We're able to use one of our old portables here on campus, which is another way that we're able to save a little bit of money there. Another big milestone was the connection of Shiloh, which is our main entrance to the actual run going into the school, and also Red Raider. So just the connection of Red Raider and Shiloh, that really does give you a clear indication of what it's going to look like as you come up to the school and look at the main entrance. Then we have the field house and the stadium road pour. Now, the really big day was when we saw our crane delivered. You may have seen this. Everybody was really excited about this. And so that happened the first part of August. And we really got excited when we started seeing our project go vertical. We have our area A where you have structural steel going up, and also this shows you where area A and B are being worked on. We have columns and beams that are showing. Also, you can start seeing how all three levels are showing at that point. And then you have the kitchen area. This is area J. And this is pretty much to where we're close to right now. And that pretty much concludes everything that we've done to date as far as on the site. It's very similar to John Tyler. We had our asbestos abatement done at Lee. One of the things I would just like to say is that we really do appreciate the teachers working with us. They did a great job of just getting everything packed up and ready for us to work in the area over the summer. And it really does take team effort to get some of this stuff done, so we really do appreciate their effort in getting that done for us and helping out. But we completed everything the week of July the 6th, which was a little bit ahead of schedule. That really did give our teachers enough time to come back to get their classrooms ready. And one of the other things that I think is really important is knowing that this is a great opportunity for our students at Robert E. Lee and also John Tyler to learn, is to have students come out to the job site. And we had one class come out to view the site while we were pouring one of the driveways and also doing around aggregate geopiers. Some of the students have never, ever been on a job site before, so this is very eye-opening for them, and it also introduces them to careers in construction management. So they were really excited, and we were really happy and pleased to have them on the site. And that concludes an update for Robert E. Lee. Are there any questions?
Let me make sure I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask this just one last time, Marty,
Yes, ma'am.
because I know it's going to be asked of me. So those who are watching see the great work that's going on and progressing there at Lee. And now, what exactly is the difference in the timelines? Is it because it was rebidded? Is that what the holdup was for JT versus what we're seeing at progression that is being made at Lee?
I think I'll field that
Yes, sir.
question.
All right.
Yes, as we saw preliminary pricing come in, we didn't like what we were seeing, so we realized with the questioning and things that came in from the contractors, as they look at the projects, as they look at the plans, as they look at the scope of the work for John Tyler, which is a very complicated project. It has 12 different phases. We felt like not only do we need some span between Robert E. Lee bid and John Tyler bid, but we needed to give ourselves time to have a clear set of drawings. When you have a clear set of drawings, you have a better understanding. When you have a better understanding, you have a sharper pencil when it comes to bid day. And also, with that staggered time, it actually played in our favor because you'll have some contractors that actually bid Robert E. Lee that will bid John Tyler too, and that did occur. That gives them time to, if I'm in phases at Robert E. Lee, say, and I finish my little section, as you heard Mrs. Jones say, if they're doing drywall in A, for example, and I'm ready at .11 area at John Tyler, that gives me surety I can keep my men and women working. I can move them right over and keep them going right back and forth. That also gives me surety to keep my doors open and sharpen my pencil also. So, yes, ma'am, a lot of that is for that, and then some of it was actually just to create efficiencies. We felt like that delay, too, would give us the best bang for the taxpayers' dollars, which they've graciously entrusted us with, and we're going to maintain that trust, and we're going to, I'm going to quote Dr. Crawford on this, is that when we start building John Tyler and get it vertical and out of the ground, it's going to be, I told you so school.
Thank you very much.
Well, what can we expect in the next month or two at Lee?
I do want to add that recently we had a bond oversight committee meeting and we did a tour. We got on the short bus that we have there, the white bus. We had a great meeting with them.
The energy bus is the correct
That's
term
what it's
for it.
called.
That's correct. And we had a really good time when we went and visited both projects. So I did want to say that. And as far as what we'll see at Robert E. Lee is you'll see just more steel.
Okay.
You want to plug your Twitters again so we can watch the progress?
Yes.
What's your Twitter handle?
It's hashtag new high school. Yeah.
Pass the mic to somebody else.
Ask one of the kids over there.
It's hashtag TISD new HS. That would be where you can check updates.
What's your
and progress.
Twitter handle, Cherie, so people can follow you?
Oh, mine is Jones Build for Kids.
Brady?
I'm at Build It Brady.
You at what?
Build It Brady.
Build it or building?
Build it.
Build It.
Build it.
IT.
Tim Loper is Tim Loper 2.
Is that on our website?
Got it. Drill
so
bit
people
Brady.
can access it?
It can be.
Please do so.
Okay.
Well, as a parent who lived through the Owens remodel, I was on both high school campuses today, and both were doing an excellent job of working through all the impact of construction, and it did not seem to be holding them back. Good things were happening on both campuses, and so it seems like you guys are continuing the same trend of being able to manage these remodels in a way that minimize the impact on kids and maximize our taxpayer dollars. So thank you very much.
Just a refresher before you close out, Reverend Hager, the 71 meetings that I provided, let me give you one piece of data. It takes a year to build an elementary school, 18 months to do a middle school, and sometimes a little bit longer than that. Almost 3 years to do a high school.
3 years.
Let's just remember that whenever we're talking about this, a year, 18 months, almost 3 years.
Not including design.
Not including design, that's just actual boots on the ground construction, okay?
And remodels always take longer than new stuff. So that's the other variable we have going on here. Okay, anything else on construction? Item B, safety and security.
Thank you.
We have some individuals tonight that'll sit at this table. Yes, Mr. Jones, you get to speak tonight. There you go. As they're making their way up, everyone knows what happened last spring with our partner school systems in Florida, and then a little bit closer here to home at Santa Fe. And a very tragic thing that feels different than anything ever has in regard to violence on school campuses. And owe it to our board and our community to provide you an update in regard to safety and security of our school system. What were some of our early actions to address student safety and security of our schools? What are some routine things that we do? What are some other things that we're looking forward to in the future? And that's what this presentation is about. This summer, this group, along with minus Chief Brown, along with one other person in our school system, attended TASA summer conference in Austin. Had a heavy security theme, and each individual that's at that table, minus Chief Brown, who had his own professional development this summer, was able to listen to some of the best practices across the school systems in Texas. And we'll just kind of go through some of that. They'll chime in when able. But with us today, we have Zach Cazares, who's the new principal at Hogg. We have Leanne Barber, our director of counseling, who was actually in a wreck today. So I want to make sure to say kudos to her for being here. I think she feels a lot better. Total your car?
I don't know.
We don't know. It got towed, right? Okay. Chief Danny Brown, police chief of Tyler ISD Police Department. Assistant Superintendent Raleigh Sanchez, Assistant Superintendent Ron Jones. Mr. Sanchez is over schools. He has safety and security along with all of our campuses under his supervision, and then Mr. Jones is my chief of staff who assists everywhere and anywhere. Next slide. So what are some of the early actions? Safety and security has always been a focus of schools. It's usually been focusing on illegal drug use or fire safety. Those have been the tragic things that had happened to schools until there have been some sporadic shootings and some sporadic violence dating all the way back to the 1800s. But, 1999 is when Columbine happened. And it was certainly a different situation to where it really got on the radar of all schools nationwide. Started dedicating personnel. Maybe even having an SRO on campus, a school resource officer with a local entity, or maybe you created your own police force. You may have had policy for staff to serve as security force themselves, a response team, and that is one thing that we looked at in regard to the Marshall Plan and the Guardian plans. What were some of our early actions? Texas Government Code 551.076 allows us to keep some privacy as far as security goes of a school system. Things that the superintendent and the board can actually discuss in executive session under the supervision of our lawyer team over there, obviously. But at the same time, it's not that we're going to present everything that is done. In other words, not to give any bad actors any ideas about what our plans are so they can circumvent some of those plans. 551076 does allow us to do that. We created our own police department in 2003, and it now carries an average of around 20 or so officers per year, along with the K-9 unit that we have as well. And I think the K-9 unit is just drugs. Is that correct, or does it actually pick up on gunpowder too?
Just drugs.
Just drugs. In the mid-2000s, the Tyler community, we spent 30, 45 minutes in regard to construction. Our community gave us an opportunity to update our facilities. Remember what our facilities looked like back then. We had a lot of older buildings that either were built in a way that's very similar to Lee. They had very open corridors that you could get to, the old Griffin, the old Pete before we actually enclosed it. Before Thayer Lee enclosed it. Able to renovate or update everything. And at this point, we have everything updated or renovated. All of our elementary schools are, with controlled access points. The most recent being, obviously, the May 2017 bond that'll focus on a lot of safety and security and making sure that we control entrances as well. Some of the routine actions that we do have, obviously drills at all campuses exist, and some of those are required by law to make sure that they're reported to the central office. We do surprise drills. We actually did a couple surprise drills last spring just to make sure that we were up to date on what we were going to do in case there was a bad actor. There are safety audits that are conducted on a 3-year cycle between all campuses. Chief Brown and his staff, along with the administrative teams of each campus, go over that checklist to make sure that all of our campuses are safe and secure. And it goes from everything from accessible entry points to, I don't know, Chief, some of the other things that you may look for.
Playground equipment.
Playground equipment.
Yes, sir.
Whether fire alarms are working, things of that nature. There's a very comprehensive safety and security plan. Then those safety audits are submitted to the Texas School Safety Center. This last spring, the governor and the lieutenant governor and the commissioner of education made sure that all school systems across the state were compliant and made sure that they had their plans in. Tyler ISD is compliant.
Including the railroad tracks.
Say it again.
Including the railroad tracks.
Including the railroad tracks. That's right. That's also part of the safety plan. Railroad tracks at Rose Stadium, right? And Pete. There you go. Okay. Some more routine actions that may not be visible by the public. There's constant communication between the campus administration along to central administration and the Tyler ISD Police Department. Text messages and emails at all hours of the night when something happens, anywhere from maybe a wreck to maybe a collision or maybe a fatality. One of our students may have perished in something. Or just like this last Saturday when 2 of our Tyler ISD buses were commandeered by the, I guess it was Gregg County maybe, or Harrison County Sheriff to evacuate, it's over Hallsville, whatever county they're in, to evacuate some passengers on the Amtrak train. So that we stay in constant communication with our communication department as well. We have great communication and coordination with our local law enforcement agencies, Tyler PD and Sheriff Smith's Sheriff's Department. And then we also have a lot of interaction and communication with our juvenile and adult judicial and mental health officials and services as well. I'm not done. There you go. We also have fidelity to student code of conduct. That's a big piece of this because we do have instruction to protect. And we do have campuses to keep safe. And we want to make sure that we have fidelity to that student code of conduct and understanding that one bad actor is not going to jeopardize the education of 21 other kids in a classroom. But at the same time, whenever they actually do get to DAP, that we provide that restorative opportunity for them so they can make it back on their home campus. That's just for the routine 30-day placements and maybe serious and persistent placements. We do not mess around when it comes to physical violence on campuses. That's the biggest advertisement I'm going to give you because I don't think it's fair to get into specific situations because of FERPA and privacy. We want to make sure that we're still talking about juveniles and adolescents here that make some bad mistakes, and announcing who that person is not always, I think, a good practice of a school system. We provide safe school PD, safe schools professional development for all of our staff. In fact, you get in trouble for Mr. Jones if you don't get that completed in HR, I guess. Okay, thank you. Next. What are some of the recent things that we've done? Tonight you adopted a budget that actually includes in that the deployment of 4 additional police officer allocations. Again, those have been publicized either in the paper or through the television about our focus on tactical response. Our police department, the guys in the blue, they're about developing relationships with kids. They do have very rigorous work that they have to do as far as paperwork goes. They also provide security and safety to the campus as well, along with just general supervision of our students. These individuals will actually be, what we're envisioning is these individuals that would actually be trained in some of the more intense type of things that you can imagine, without going into too much description about that. We've also created 4 action teams. We're really excited about this. Those action teams are cyber tech, facilities personnel, policy and procedure, and the social emotional component. Obviously, the first 3 on that list speak highly of the things that you hear about in the press a lot. Do you need to provide a little bit more firepower on campus? Do you need to hire more people? Do you possibly consider arming your staff? And again, I'm just asking questions, rhetorical questions. But that last one, the social emotional component of it, is something that school systems already have in place with their counseling services, along with others, that we can focus on to get us back to being kinder to each other, not just our students, but the adults as well. Those action teams are going to consist of principals and central office administrators. We will also be placing students upon those action teams as well, along with community members who may also be parents. Those 4 action teams will actually meet 4 times a year and then actually provide recommendations to the superintendent's office, central office, on how we can improve our safety and security of our school system. Y'all know that I'm not a big on committees. That's why we call them action teams, for one. But the other thing is, I do think it's imperative that everyone takes ownership in this as well. That all of our eyes and ears are open in regard to what's going on in the community, so that we can prevent tragedies from happening. We talked about this the summer conference. Our police department had some active shooter continuing ed this summer. We did review the governor's task force recommendations that were put together. The information was gathered last spring from across roundtables, along with from school districts across the country, and then the state. We also participated in the Commissioner of Education, Lieutenant Governor, and the governor's request for a survey about what we're actually doing in Tyler ISD. It went everything from active shooter training to social emotional training to what type of hardware do you have on your door. In other words, do you have the panic bars, or do you have some other type of antiquated system? So we've submitted that as well. We've also reviewed cyber tech software and some hardening products. Again, under 551.076, we're not going to disclose those at this time. Even if we've gone forward with that, we certainly don't want to give away our advantage as far as what we may have in place. The use of front office vestibules were available at all locations. The East Texas folksy way is to have things open and making sure that we're going back and making sure that first door is locked where you have to be buzzed in, I think is an important action for us to do at all of our campuses. And certainly today was the first day of school, but you'll see that tightened up as we go forward. In other words, you've got the front doors that you come in, let's take an elementary school, and then you've got the second set of doors. Those are always locked, exit only. and you have to go into the little side door there to get into the main office. We actually have capabilities, I think, at all of our elementary schools for that to actually be locked and for you to be buzzed in at that. Is that correct, Mr. Sanchez?
That's correct.
Okay. Additional cameras at facilities, and we have HD with sound in all of our buses. That's right. We have better cameras in our buses with high quality, high definition sound. You can hear a lot of things on our buses. Mr. Sanchez, we can hear
A lot.
conversations on our buses.
We hope never to hear again.
Yeah. So it's something that it's not just whenever they are at our campuses, it's also when they're away from us as well. And again, continuous review of facilities. We've got some gaps. I've kind of alluded to Mr. Loper some things I'd like to see us work on, to get some drawings on at some of our campuses that I think we still have a few little gaps on that we can do. Just some things that y'all might be seeing pretty quick. I'm not going to provide what those are to you yet until it's time for y'all to maybe consider writing a check. What are some of the future actions? This initiative is important, and let's give everything a hashtag, right? No, actually, Safe TISD is the way we're going to go. This is going to be our comprehensive plan. Safe TISD. I knew Mr. Washman would like something like that. That's our comprehensive program, including improved parent-community communication procedures. You know, last spring, after all that happened, we did have a little bit of a panic at one of our campuses. And after going back and reviewing our practices on that, maybe we should have responded differently. Being able to make sure that we have that out just to relay to the community that we're working on it may provide a sense of calmness that we're aware. We responded probably, I don't know, 12 hours later. But in those 12 hours, because of Facebook, it really did take on a life of its own. So much to where it broke our hearts that, you know, kids' names were being thrown around unfairly in some issues, in some situations. So, you know, maybe if we can provide a tweet or a Facebook post or an Instagram, Mr. Sanchez on a snap, maybe that would... MySpace? Oh, okay, you should use MySpace. Maybe that'd be something that could actually help kind of calm some things down. A school-wide, district-wide social emotional program. Ms. Barber's going to kind of describe something that we've decided upon here. I know I talked about Rachel's Challenge, but there's 2 or 3 others that are out there that maybe Ms. Barber can decide, maybe present to the board which one we've actually chosen where we're going to go.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford, members of the board. We went to the conference this summer. I went to a session, it's called the Sandy Hook Promise. And I liked it so much. I researched into it, looked into other school districts that are already implementing it. They have 4 components, and they're all, the one big title is Know the Signs. Actually, what it is, it's a national program that was created, and it's led by the family members of loved ones from the Sandy Hook Elementary shooting, which was in December of 2012. And the 4 Know Your Signs programs are, the first one is Start with Hello. And we're looking at implementing 2 of them this year and then 2 of them next year. And to tell you about the Start with Hello program, is a social and emotional program that is district-wide. And it's about creating kindness, building relationships, connectedness, caring about each other. Sandy Hook people, they actually will come into Tyler ISD and they'll train our staff. They'll do presentations for our students, also community events and parent events. We will have a big kickoff week with hundreds of different schools around the world, and that week is September 24th through the 28th, and it's called Start with Hello Week. And then another program that we're going to implement this year, and it's really geared towards middle school and high school, it's called Say Something. It's about stand up and say something. A lot of times kids, they don't say something. They think someone else will say something. If someone's hurting, they're going through something, or they are talking about violence, but it's about teaching kids to say something. There is also an app that goes with this program, and it would be an app that if a kid is having, it's an anonymous reporting app is what it is. There's also a part on the website, and this could also, we can look into this for bullying, because we look into changing our bullying process. And those are the two programs for this year that we're looking at, or Start with Hello and Say Something. Another program that is very good it's called Signs of Suicide Prevention Program, and it will actually teach our middle school and high school students signs of prevention, suicide, what to look for, and also teaches our staff. And the other one is Safety Prevention and Assessment Intervention, and it is teaching our staff, but all about mental illness, what to look for when a child is having a difficult time, but it's ongoing, and it's staff training. But I'm very excited about this because we have a lot of great social and emotional programs, but we're different at different schools, and this would be a great, great program for our entire district to implement.
I can't believe Miss Barber said yes to going down to Austin with all this. When we told her what was out there, that's something that was near and dear to her heart, and give the director of counseling the opportunity to make some district level decisions, and she jumped all over it. That last bullet, kind of along the same lines that Miss Barber talked about, was we've got to seek cutting edge deterrents that we can install. One thing that we did look at was called Smoke Cloak. It's very interesting. The Department of Defense is one of the is their largest client, I guess, and it's pretty cool. Whether or not we go down that path or not, it fogs up a room. I mean, it's ridiculous on how it works. Actually got to do that. But whether or not we go there or not, I don't know if that's going to happen. They're very close. The technology is very close. I mean, I'm talking within the next maybe 18 months to 2 years on gunshot recognition, along with airport quality X-ray, about detecting whether or not there's a gun on campus. There's also technology that's out there that's coming that talks about the perimeter of an area, the size of one of our high schools, being able to detect whether or not there's actually a gun on campus. You can look at metal detectors, and I know there's been a lot in the press about that, but we've got folks in our school system now, me being one of them, two guys at that table, Dr. Hanson, to where we've worked those metal detector tables and units whenever kids are coming into school, and we think of a lot of bad things that could happen as you're gathering a bunch of people there at one area. So we won't go into much of that. That's probably not a recommendation that's going to wind up coming across your table. The See It, Say It app that Ms. Barber described, that's not the only one that's out there. If we find a better one, that's something we might throw in front of one of our action teams. One that we would love to see happen, we already have great relationships with Smith County Sheriff's Office, along with Tyler PD, is some enhanced partnerships with both of them, to where they can have a lot of presence on our elementary campuses as well. Down the road, because we're just a bunch of educators, and we've talked about Chief of Police Danny Brown being the guy that manages the police department. Does this board consider a director of security in the future, upper level administrator position that actually manages all that? Because this is a new realm. A lot of us went to school to be educators. Certainly y'all do charge me with making sure that this school system is great in every area. But I'll tell you, when it comes to some of the things that we're learning now, it's a little different for us. System-wide continuing education and preparation education for students and staff. We're looking at, after school's out, right after Memorial Day, what those days are going to be used at. I don't know if we're going to do a district-wide safety and security symposium or not this coming May, early June. And then obviously continuing education. We've talked to Chief Brown here about making sure that our police department is receiving not just the basic certification renewal requirements, but making sure that they're really provided some rigorous opportunities in the summer for continuing education as well. Is that it? Okay. So we've got this panel here that y'all can ask questions of or ask questions of me. But that's kind of a review of where we are as far as safety and security goes in Tyler ISD.
I saw something the other night on television, on the news. Of course, this is a town that only had one high school. But the teachers and staff members had around their neck something that looked like a panic button. Have you seen that?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, Tim, which, I know CTC has the surround sound in its classrooms. Do we have any other campuses that have that?
Yes, sir, we do. We have the CTC, we have Rice and Owens.
Yeah.
And we're putting the same system in both high schools that have that capability of that.
Yeah. So when you wear that around your neck, it also works as a microphone for instructional purposes, but on that is also located a panic button.
Right.
On that. And I think that is worth going back and looking to see what the cost would be, what the value would be for that to happen.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
That's part of the technology that our groups can take a look at.
Other questions? Dr. Crawford, the action teams you've assembled, when do you anticipate they'll begin making recommendations for us to consider?
So we just got our kids and our parents back from summer break today, the first day of school. So the principals will get their campuses going, identify those individuals to serve on those teams with them. We're hoping that October we'll have something formal as far as a group getting together and meeting, and possibly maybe before the close of this calendar year in front of the board.
We've met once already with all of our principals. So all of our principals have been identified, and they're all in one of these 4 groups already. And they met last week or the week before to begin their own 1, 3, 5-year thought process and what they think it might look like.
So we're not necessarily constrained by the budget process. That would be something that if we had a mid-year recommendation that had some budgetary impact, we could amend the budget.
That's correct. I think some of the things that I just described earlier about some campuses that we know need a little bit of TLC in regard to safety and security. Right now, you'll get that sooner rather than later, probably waiting on those action teams. We're going to start working on that right now. So,
okay.
And hopefully just some of our practice will be changed, where it won't cost you anything. We'll just simple things like making sure that front vestibule door is always that you have to be buzzed in to come in. I know it's not the folksy way we like to do things, but we've got to change some of our practices here to probably ensure a little bit more safety. There's some data behind some of the things that we're probably going to install. Practice-wise, I don't want to share that data. I'm going to use that under 551.076 because, again, I think that data is to our advantage of why some of the things that we do going forward is to keep our kids safe and our staff.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Crawford and team.
Ms. Barber, how are you feeling?
I feel good. Thank you.
Future business, item 15.
In case y'all haven't noticed, the start of school also brings the start of football season. It's a great opportunity for our communities to get together and celebrate community. Whether or not you like the game of football or not, going to Rose Stadium on a Friday night is fun for everyone. Whether you're in the band, you're there to support the cheerleaders, the dance teams, the Brigadettes or the Southern Bells, or just to be a student in the student section. Those are some of the best memories you can have, and East Texas still has that. In saying that, the Christus Trinity Mother Frances Football Classic is September 6th through 8th, with the John Tyler and Lee game, 7 p.m. Saturday night September 8th. Kickoff at 7 p.m.
At the Hall of Fame, induction to the Hall of Fame.
We got Hall of Fame induction that night. It's just a great night for Tyler. 12,000 people right there. We'll have additional security there like we always do. We'll have a lot of things in place to make sure that the fans have a good experience that night.
I would like to express my appreciation to this district for honoring the 1968 basketball team at Emma J. Scott High School. It was my privilege to watch them play, and it certainly is going to be an honor to see them being honored, those who are still alive.
Well deserved. September 6th is the board workshop. The next meeting is September 17th in this room.
Did I hear somewhere there would be no bags taken into the stadium?
Yeah, that's another part of our security plan is that if you're going to take a bag in the stadium, it needs to be a clear one. You can take a little, what are those, clutch? Is that what they're called? Thank you, Coach Priest. A clutch. If you have any questions about that, Greg Priest is your go-to guy about what size bags are allowable. But you know, I mean, again, everyone needs to be a little bit more concerned. I think last week at a football game in Florida, there was an incident, and that's not a preventative tool. Is it more as a statement? We're watching, and we've got folks on point, and it's sad that it takes things that happened last spring to wake everybody up, but I think it is something that we're all going to be dealing with for the rest of our lives. But yes, ma'am, to answer your question, clear bags.
Okay. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
I'll
Second.
second.
Thank you, Reverend Mason. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. We stand adjourned.